to start by bringing to focus the vital issue of food insecurity. So in Canada, we throw away more than 58% of the food we produce. That happens in different stages in the food supply chain, and we literally throw away more food than what we eat. Now, this 58% is twice the global average, which is about just a third of what the world produces. Yet, 1 in 7 Canadians is food insecure, and I want to get your thoughts on how we fix that.
I don't think I can provide an absolute solution because it's such a complex system. But I think I want to sort of talk just very briefly. I'm going to actually time myself because I don't want to talk too much. The issues is really more, the thing is that the food system is designed right now, and COVID-19 has really shown us where the weakness is in the system. It's really shown us the problems that we have. But one of the big things is that we have, especially in the Western world, because I'm really more or less going to focus on that, because the issues in developing countries is very different. And so we're going to focus here. Our food systems here are designed to produce cheap food, and we don't really care about the externalities. We don't care about basically the environment or how much we throw away. The issue is, do we have cheap food? And we have had a declining proportion of our income spent on food since the 1900s. 1900s in Canada, we spent over 50% of our income on food. Now we're down around 10%. So we have always seen a decline in food prices. Maybe there's been bumps, for various reasons, but steadily from 50% to 10% is significant. So the issue is that system. And one of the things that we have to do as consumers is agree to spend more for our food, and then certain things can be resolved. We can help smaller or medium-sized farms, because right now, what you're seeing out in the agriculture milieu is that you have very large farms, amalgamation of farms, so they're getting very, very big, which have a very detrimental effect on the rural environment, the rural communities. And you have the smaller farms that fit certain niche needs. So, but all the middle farms are vanishing. And so we have this split, a split in kind of how they produce food, how they do it. But some of the other things that we can do to reduce that waste, because it occurs at the farm gate, and it occurs in the supermarket, and a lot of it occurs in your fridge. One of the things is to convince supermarkets and places where you buy food not to have large quantities of food. So if you buy that special big bag of something or other, more than likely half of it might go bad, but you think you're getting a deal. Plate size, how much food is actually on your plate? Consider that. Like restaurants don't need to fill the plate to the brim and then you throw out half of it. The other things are, there is a relationship between pretty food and whether or not you buy it. The appearance of the food is actually what we focus on, not other sort of factors that are involved with it. The shape of it should not matter. When I was I taught for a number of years in Panama, and we went to this place where they were producing the bananas for shipment overseas. A banana that did not have the proper curve, just the curve, nothing to do with the taste or anything, was thrown away, because a flat banana doesn't sell. A curved banana sells. So that, to me, is just like, that sort of attitude is insane. Another thing, just quickly, and I'm going to end, is consider the best buy before the best buy date on your food. That really doesn't have any basis in science. It is a sort of a number or a date that the food processor has chosen. They think it's better, they don't really know, but it's not going to kill you if you eat it after it. It's perfectly fine. More than likely, it's fine for a very long time. So there's a number of things we can do, but it's really the system, and we have to move away from this feeling that all food should be cheap. But at the same time, there are people who are food insecure, so they do need the cheaper food, but it's a whole rearrangement of the components.
Wow.
No solution, sorry, not much of a solution.
It's very complicated. It's very interesting to think about how much less now we spend on food, and it's just not something that occurred to me, and I might circle back to that if there's an opportunity later. Okay, Graham, I understand your P3 company's mission is to help communities across Canada and across the world, really. You mentioned 10 different countries to produce sustainable food. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to flag to everybody watching that there's a workshop on permaculture after this. Now, my question is, what do you think is the role of business in eliminating food security in Canada and globally?
I think um, I think when we talk about business, we have to reflect a bit of what Carolyn was saying as well. That it's about the perspective of what is food and what is acceptable in food. The curved banana doesn't sell. Well, this is also how we market food, and so in all businesses, whether you're a food-related business or not, there is a portion of education that is often given to employees, and so we can be encouraging knowledge around more sustainable food practices, the impact of food. You yourself were shocked at how much the decrease that we've been spending on food. Many people don't realize that that's the case. They think that food is actually more and more expensive, and that they're spending more and more money on food every day. We don't actually realize that the nutritional value of food is been decreasing by half, sometimes depending on the food crops that we're looking at over the last 50 to 70 years. We don't realize that the small holdings farms around our cities are actually, some of the hardest hit when it comes to things like COVID and all of these different things. So I think there's a huge educational component, which is why we also focus on education, not only consultation, but also breaking this mindset of the producer consumer. Right. We love dualities as humans. We love black and white. We love good or wrong. We love producer consumer, human versus nature. And all of these constructs often make it a lot easier for us to be oblivious to really what's going on in our food system. And many people say you're never going to produce enough food in your apartment to be self-sufficient, so why bother, right? You're not going to grow enough greens on your balcony to eliminate the grocery store, so what's the point? But if you can produce in the middle of winter batches of broccoli sprouts that are incredibly nutritious and that actually keep you healthy physically and keep you not getting sick, and then actually even more productive in your own work and projects, the impact is huge. There's also something that I experience when I work with clients. I've seen people for the first time pick their very first tomato that they ever grow from seed. And in this one case, it was a 70-year-old man that we helped set up a balcony garden. And believe you me, he did not produce enough tomatoes to be self-sufficient on his balcony. But that one tomato and the first bite of it, there were tears in his eyes. It was a revolutionary kind of interaction and connection with food that then opens and unravels this whole dichotomy and duality of the producer consumer. So we can't get too far into all that right now, but I really think it's about education, and it's about providing moments of inspiration and willingness to test and trial all these different fun things. I mean, right behind me, I produce almost half of my annual supply of turmeric, right? Who would have thought you could even do that in Montreal indoors, right? So there's all kinds of interesting things that we can bridge, and it's not about producing sustainable or equivalent amounts of food, but it's about cracking and breaking that divide from producer consumer.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. One of the things that COVID might have done is that because we cook more often, we waste less because we develop those relationships. Can imagine what growing food would do to that relationship with food. Cesar, I hear you're particularly interested in thinking about the rise of global population, and when I've heard that, I thought about a book I came across. It's a 50-year-old book, and it was a biologist from Stanford, and the book is called A Population Bomb. And that biologist essentially predicted that by the 1970s, millions will starve because we will not be able to produce enough food to feed everybody. Now, thanks to the Green Revolution, afterwards, this did not come to pass. But will you share your thoughts on these issues and what solution we can pursue to eliminate food security and make sure everybody's fed?
In fact, yeah, I'm very concerned about the rise of the population because we are working on it at HuddleCorp. In fact, you have, yes, two challenges. How do you provide sufficient amount of food for the people in the world, and how you get the food accessible in terms of value for all the people, And this is a very specific problem, particularly in the meat-based protein. So we are working on it, and if you just look at the statistics, according to the World Food Futures, we will need to produce plus 70% of meat-based protein by 2050 um, to support the demographic growth. And in fact, we have to find some ways support this demand. We could say, okay, so we can avoid the consumption of meat-based protein, but in fact, population today is not really ready to do this for several reasons. First, free meat diet can be hard to manage for several people, and also meat consumption is also related to the increase of the purchasing power. So it's kind of hard to find solution, but we have to find solution. And I think before we were thinking about how do you get some productivity in agriculture. I think today you have some more inputs about the sustainability. So it's all about the efficiency of the agriculture. So what is the efficiency of the agriculture? To me, it's about how do you provide qualitative food for the people, and in a smart way. I mean, how you can be sustainable with quality, and you can reach the amount of the production with cost effectiveness. So I'm just going to give you an example because we all can contribute on the value chain in our way to optimize the sustainability of agriculture. And at HuddleCorp, we just saw that in the feed manufacturing today, people are manufacturing feed with high temperature and high pressure processes that degrade the raw material quality, nutrient quality, and so the feed quality for the animals. So you have a lot of problem with that. And second problem is that the pellets, which are distributed to the animals, are not the most optimal feed design to be digested, and so we just saw that, and we were just thinking about how can we improve this, and we just say, hey, we should just work on the low temperature and low pressure process to preserve the nutrient. And the feed property and optimize digestion for the animals. And we demonstrated that this approach could have a benefit on the development of the animals because he has a better digestion, and we improve the animal health and the well-being of the animals by also improving the farm economics. And also we demonstrated that we had some reduction on the effluent reloads. So I think the main goal is how can we rethink the historical practices in agriculture to get more sustainability and be kind of pragmatic, small step, but we will reach the sustainability.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Professor Begg was saying. You know, going to focus on the quality of food instead of food. The relationship there. So Professor Begg, I lost a lot of sleep after reading an article that I came across a couple months ago. It was from Scientific American. It was from 2014. It's a bit old, but essentially it said that at current soil degradation rate, the world has only 60 years worth of farmable soil left. So now it's 54, I suppose. But can you, first of all, is that true? And can you speak to the current state of soil health, so the challenges? How can we address that?
Just to say that soil degradation kind of depends on where you are in the world. Because there's factors that are involved with the, like temperature and moisture and agricultural practices and so forth. So it really depends on where you are, the rate at which it's happening. I mean, that could be an average sort of amount. But I do want to say, since 2014, the number of farms in Canada and the US, again, I'm going to stick with North America because developing and tropical countries are very different. The amount of farms there who have switched to no-till, which means that they don't cultivate, they are maintaining sort of carbon in the soil through residues and other things, has really, really increased. Like I would say probably 90% of the farms in Western Canada now practice no-till. There's a huge percentage in the US that do so as well. There is still soil degradation. And I mean, just to give you an idea why it is so critical for our region in the Northeast here, is that it takes 500 years to get about 2.5 centimeters of soil. So we can only create 2.5 centimeters of soil in 500 years. And it's really easy to lose it in a year. Soil losses cause immense problems to waterways. They cause problems to agriculture, fish life, everything that goes along there. The dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico are caused by eroding soil and nutrients coming down the Mississippi. And that's a huge, huge area where there's no oxygen and there's no fish and there's nothing. How to resolve it, you see this a lot with regenerative agriculture now. This is a big movement out there. A lot of people are moving towards that way. There's a lot more focus on soil health. To me, I think when we can recover from soil degradation, but what we can't recover from is urbanization. That is probably one of the biggest problems we have. Just to give you a quick example, most of us here, some of us here may have bought from Amazon, and we have this fixation that we need to have whatever product we want to get within a day, or maybe 2 days at the most. And this has caused, Amazon is building a big facility on 100 hectares of land in Les Cèdres, which is prime agricultural land. We're losing it. We're never going to get that back. And if we're in Canada, at least, we have very little prime agricultural land. There's ways of regenerating degraded land, but once it's under concrete, cement and buildings, we don't get it back. So I think there's possibilities for stopping that erosion, but not the urbanization.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Graham, how can you speak to the role of permaculture in improving soil health, and what approaches and technologies that you think should be adopted widely across the food industry to address the soil degradation?
So first of all, just to kind of break the language barrier, permaculture is a fancy word for observing with principles that designing with principles that we observe in nature. So ecological design is a much more digestible kind of name to go under. So with ecological design, basically what we're looking at is whenever we address a problem, we look at how nature would solve that problem. And if you look at the Earth, a couple millions of years ago, it was actually a big ball of rock. And if you look at the biological processes that turned that rock into this prime arable soil, this is what we want to mimic in permaculture. Now, obviously, we don't have another 4 million years or 3.6 billion years or whatever of evolution to build that soil again. So what we're looking at is how nature would build the soil, and then how can we as humans and with intellect and technology fast track that evolution of the natural process. So for example, one of the co-founders of the permaculture movement in the beginning was P.A. Yeomans, who actually developed a water management and erosion management system in Tasmania, in Australia. And they were able to document in 18 months 6 inches of topsoil being created. Now, this breaks totally that natural, if we're going to wait around for nature to regenerate soil, like Carolyn said, we really have no time for that. So it's really up to us as designers and practitioners within the soil field to learn these principles of regeneration and apply them at a massive scale. Now, we talk a lot about regenerative agriculture, and this is what the focus of the permaculture presentation will be after this, but we need regenerative lifestyles. We need our parks to be built upon organic matter cycling that is building soil, capturing rainwater, reducing flood, and producing food within the city limits. That's not an agricultural site, that's a productive, edible forest park. We need our gardens and our yards to be performing in ways that they are reducing all of these different elements, and not just look at soil being produced as an agricultural responsibility, although it is, because agriculture is one of the biggest leading causes of degradation and loss of soil to erosion. But also, as Carolyn mentioned, in the urban, if we just cover everything in asphalt and concrete, you can't regenerate the soil that is locked under there until you remove that concrete. So biophilic design is actually a design process by which we observe how the patterns of nature are naturally affinitive to humans. We've evolved in nature for thousands of years, millions of years. And so what we do now today is we live 90% of our lives indoors or in a concrete jungle with very few references to nature, visual, auditory, aromatic, or whatnot. So biophilic design, if you look at the examples in Singapore, there are areas of the city where you're not sure if you're in a park or if you're in the city. And you would think that you're in the park, but then your office building is right there. And you look out your office building and there's a jungle. And so they're breaking this barrier between green space and gray space and redefining the ultimate evolution of what urban spaces are. So the cities are designed to capture every drop of rainwater that lands on that city and recharge the aquifers. Today, only 1% of our water that lands on a city goes back to the aquifer. They are building carbon in all of the soil, in all of the areas. As much of the pavement as possible is permeable pavement. The parks are designed as more wild spaces rather than fully maintained spaces. There are maintained areas, but in integration. So biophilic design is really the urban answer, and regenerative agriculture has come to the forefront as the agricultural answer. But again, I don't believe in this duality or dichotomy that soil degradation is going to make it hard to grow food and therefore it's farmers' responsibility. This is an everyday way of life. And I work with farmers, here in the plateau, urban farmers, urban homesteaders who have backyards, and we capture and build soil carbon at dramatic rates while having beautiful peonies and gardens, rose gardens, and all these different things as well. So there's not just the agricultural responsibility, but there's also an everyday responsibility in all of our ways of life.
Sorry, I do want to follow up on something very quickly. So Graham, you're essentially talking about reimagining how the city is designed, and I'm wondering how do you see the business sort of driving that, especially I guess most of the audience are business students, and so
yeah.
What should they be thinking about right now?
Well, it's really interesting because I actually was giving a conference for BBR, which is a Le Grand Rouge. It's a big marketing firm. They were talking about how to become future-proof as a business, and they're hoping for some new, design process or something like that. And what we actually talked to them about was through biophilic design. With the integration, as you can see behind me in my chaotic jungle, there are branches of wood, there are patterns of leaves. It's almost hard to focus on me, which is part of the reason it's there, but you get distracted by these chaotic patterns of nature. Well, if we had your brain in an MRI at this moment, we would actually see parts of your brain being stimulated that are identical to if you were walking in the forest. Now, if we had a tabletop waterfall in your room as well, we have another level of the stimulation of your brain that is the same. And because a human being has evolved for millions of years in these natural patterns, those actual patterns cause a natural state of calm. And so we can reduce, and the statistics are proven, they're online, they've been researched for many, many years, but in the Human Spaces report, they say 20% reduction in stress, which is the leading cause of illness and the leading cause as a business of loss of work and productivity. Burnouts is huge. Burnout is a term that everybody knows. I don't even have to explain what it means. Because we're also familiar with this term. Well, if we increase green space, we increase not only just plants in your space, but preserved moss art or patterns of nature, we can dramatically increase all of these different benefits. And reducing stress, we can design offices that are using certain patterns of nature to actually create more mystery, and the mystery sparks the creativity of your brain and the problem solving, because basically in nature, if you're walking through the woods and you can't see behind the bushes, your brain is hypothesizing all the potential outcomes that are behind that bush. So if you are in a brainstorming productivity session with a team, you don't want to be in a gray room with white walls that has no imagination. That creative part of your brain shuts off. You want a mystery. You want shadows and corners that are unseen, so it stimulates that part of your brain. Now, you may want a moment of the day where you want to calm down. Well, we can actually take those same patterns and change them around and use different patterns and associations to make spaces of the office that actually calm and relax you and release you from that prepared stress of the unknown. So there are many different patterns of nature that we can integrate into the workplace. And Singapore is really the leading example in many ways of biophilic design, to a point where there's even food production in offices that's also building wellness.
Great. Cesar, you talked a little bit about your background earlier, which I found fascinating. So you started with being a mathematician, and then you worked in the financial sector, and I heard metal 3D printing somewhere as well. I'm an engineer, so I relate to my research is making material for 3D printing. So you seem to have jumped all over the place, and now you're an entrepreneur. Working running a company, and so I'm wondering how this journey came about, and how all these different expertise sort of work together in your mission in HuddleCorp.
I think I'm going to explain how I thought to build my background, and but first, to me, I think you need to understand my vision of the entrepreneur. Because all the people do not have the same vision of that, so it's interesting. And to me, an entrepreneur is an explorer, and that is really interested in discovering new fields and so on. And the fact is that what is important is not the target that you reach, but the journey that you have to do to reach the targets. And this is with the journey that you are building your background, and you can use some expertise in that you develop in experience in other experiences. And I just so I wasn't a pure scientist because I went after in the business, and I was really interested in explore how to link the science with the market, and how does the science can be useful for the people in the world. And so I was just asking, okay, so what place can I have in this environment? And I just thought that to link the science with the market, so to do any innovation, the innovation need to be understood, and the innovation need to be sufficient to itself to be engaged in autonomous projects. So I was I was thinking that okay, this is what I can do, how to find some application for technologies and so on, and how to popularize some innovations. And yeah, this is how I built my background. So in fact, if you want to have an innovation which is sufficient to itself and autonomous, you have to be economically viable. So this was the first start. So I started in finance, and I tried to understand how does the finance impact um, the functioning of the companies and so on. And I then went to the investment in a startup just to understand when you have to start a new innovation, how do you get some funds to start the activity, and what are the checkbox to check for the investors. And yes, if you want to popularize innovation, you have to to get aware of the sensitivity of the different people in their field, because for example, time for scientists is not the same for industrial people or for business guys, and you have to be aware of that if you want to make the interest of everybody converge to an innovation that works. So yeah, I think in finance I get some understanding of how the company works, and how can you start the business and the innovation by working in the 3D printing. I was at the frontier to R&D and business development, and you can just analyze on how does the people of the R&D think, whereas than the people in the business development. And it's in fact in the success of innovation is a lot of uh, human convergence, and get the sensitivity of every people to make the thing work. And I think what is important is, finally, when you are your education is just the beginning of your life, and I think do not consider that your education is your only expertise on your life. What is important is what is your vision of entrepreneur, and what kind of entrepreneur do you want to do? You can be an entrepreneur which want to jump field to field like me, or you can do an entrepreneur which wants to just explore a very specific field with a lot of deepness and so on. So you just have to choose it, and if you want to change field, you have just to me two things to consider. The first thing is try to find the way in which you maximize your fast learning curve, because in fact, if you learn fast, you can go everywhere you want. And just uh, changing can be tricky, but when you change, do not forget the journey you had, because you need to capitalize on your journey. And this is because you have a journey that you can bring another stone to another environment. So get this in your mind.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think this is an important lesson here that all, no matter what field people start in, everybody should and can contribute to transitioning into sustainable society, including via business. Um, so I enjoyed that very much. I would like to remind everybody watching that they can send question to Sarah. We'll start the Q&A from the audience in about 4 minutes or so. Professor Begg, one of the things you've mentioned is that there are very different issues in terms of food security from downtown Montreal to a suburban area. And I would like maybe if you can help us gain a bit of an appreciation on the different nuance. Just because people think of food insecurity, you think about the ugly fruit and that's it. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the differences between the different groups.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to do that. The thing is that the issues that affect people who are living in, okay, downtown Montreal, perhaps there are no things that are called food deserts. You probably have 500 kilometers, sorry, half a kilometer, 500 meters, half a kilometer to get to a place where you probably can buy fruit or vegetables or something, maybe not a huge variety, but you can get there. If you come to the West Island and you map out where grocery stores are, or even dépanneurs, they're all on the major routes, and there's nothing in the central area. For me here in St. Anne's, there's only one small grocery store, and that is about a kilometer away. So if I'm a senior citizen, or if I'm a single mother with 3 children, and I'm trying to get to a grocery store that I can buy my things and then come back, transportation accessibility is a huge issue, and it reduces my ability to choose things. It reduces what I can carry home, etc. All of these things. So there's different issues that are affecting different people. So that's one big thing. The other thing that we found, and this has also been reported on very extensively by, I'm sorry, I have a problem. There's a very well-known researcher at the University of Toronto in food security, food insecurity, and she's looked at the effect of having gardens, whether community gardens, collective gardens are an effective way of providing food security, and they're pretty much not. The issue is that most people who are poor don't have enough time to invest in gardens. Somebody might be working 2 jobs, they might have children, they come home, they don't have time. And the one thing, and I'm sure that Graham knows this and other people know this, gardens require work. They're not just something, oh, I'll plant a couple of seeds and I'll come back in a month and something will be there. Yes, a whole lot of things will be there. Probably you won't be able to find what you planted, but gardens require consistent work. The main reason is because nature loves to have a variety. We want just that tomato plant, and container gardens are great for that. Container gardens work really well with that. But in normal situations, gardens they're useful for health, for mental health, for interaction with people. They're good for children to develop exercise. There's all kinds of other things. But if you're going to say that this is going to solve an food insecurity problem in some of these areas that are less dense, and we have places to put gardens, it's not going to do it. It really, the people who have time are the wealthier ones, the ones that don't really have a food insecure problem. So yeah, so that's those are some of the issues that are different compared to the downtown.
Sarah, I don't know if we have any questions from the audience, or I have a lot more questions to ask. That's fine.
We have a few questions from the audience. You can ask your question first, though, if you like. We just have a few.
It's up to you. And interrupt me whenever. So one of the things that stood up to me when you were talking about how much money we used to spend on food, and now we only spend 10% of our budget. I recalled an article that I've read on the CBC that was talking, because a lot of Canada's produce come from California, or that suffered from wildfires. Our grocery bill is expected to increase by $700 per family.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you see nature forcing us to spend more on food.
Oh, no, I think that all of the fires are caused by I mean, they're not set by humans, but it's human action that has caused those fires. I mean, the way we manage ecosystems, the way we think we need to manage ecosystems is not how those systems were designed to exist. Yes, I mean, I think, I think that, how to say this, like, we import a lot of our fruits and vegetables from California, but what's interesting is that there was just an article in the Lettre Chez Nous about 2 weeks ago that was commenting on the fact that consumption in Quebec of fruits and vegetables is declining.
Right.
Even though we have a lot of CSAs, we have a lot of local farms that are producing fruits and vegetables, they're concerned because people are not as interested in consuming fruits and vegetables. We have very set patterns on what we like to consume. We like tomatoes, we like lettuce, we like onions, and we like potatoes. That's about it. So again, one of the other big problems, so that is an issue. So the prices are going up, but there is also the other issue is not only that there's the problems in the San Joaquin Valley where all of our vegetables are being produced, but it's also the exchange rate. So if the exchange rate is low, then we're going to pay more for fruits and vegetables. Should we produce more here in greenhouses? One's going to have to look at life cycle analysis to tell me that it's absolutely the best. Maybe it is because, we have hydro, but I'm not exactly keen on flooding more lands in the north so the south can have hydropower, cheap hydropower. Quebec pays, again, that's another thing. Our prices here for energy are very, very cheap. Ontario is very, very cautious about how they use energy. We don't really care here because it doesn't cost us anything. So there's a lot of, there needs to be a lot of thought about what we do here. I mean, I am very much for food sovereignty. I'm very much for agriculture in Quebec, and whether it's urban or rural, doesn't matter. But we need to think about the consequences of some of the choices we're making. And I don't think that we're really looking at it.
Great. I have a question from the audience. What can I do as an individual to have a sustainable food consumption? How can students achieve that? Anyone can answer. Maybe Graham?
So that's a really broad question. And I think it all begins with first steps, like really looking at where do you get your food from? And so personally, I am not able to buy everything organic, and nor do I believe in all of the organic producers out there. But there is a list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 that's provided by the Environmental Working Group that shows us at least the vegetables that have been tested to show the most high residual content of chemical pesticides and herbicides. So if you can start with that, you realize that necessarily we don't have to buy everything organic, but we can look at specific foods that have higher amounts of pesticides, like our potatoes, like our carrots, like our onions, and our mangoes or our avocados or whatever, which have their own problems, are produced using less. So you can make a choice based on the actual produce. The other thing you can look at is one of the most impactful things I think any of us can do is to look into getting a, we call it panier bio in Quebec, but they also call it a CSA, community supported agriculture, which is a different form of agriculture where smallholding farms will ask you to become a member. You pay $200 or $400 a season, depending on how much vegetables you want to get. And you pay this upfront, which gives them the starting capital to then produce the food. And you get a share of vegetables either every week or every 2 weeks, depending on what you signed up for, that is produced locally and not necessarily certified organic, but very often they are organic, especially if you go through Cretel and their website and find a different producer there. So there's that, which is directly supporting local farmers and not necessarily just buying produced in Quebec that's, you know, from AgroPure or some huge corporation that's jumping in on this local trend. So understanding that these small farmers are full of people like you and me, like that are talking about alternative agriculture, that are talking about soil carbon sequestration, that are talking about flooding and fires. And these are the people that we need to help maintain their businesses. So it's a social economic support, as well as the fact that if your vegetable is organic and came from California and you're buying it because that's a sustainable choice, but it's breaking your bank because first of all, it's expensive. Second of all, the carbon footprint of it being transported all the way here is massive, and we're not even going to get started on that. And third is the nutrient composition of that food. After 7 days, we've lost on average, and this is a very big generalization, 70% of the nutrient density of food after 7 days. So first of all, when you buy groceries, sometimes they just sit in your fridge for 7 days, but they also took a lot longer to get from California to here. And when you pick up your basket, sometimes they still have dirt on them because they were harvested at 5 a.m. that day. The nutrient health there, it will offset long-term the cost of the food because of the reduction of all kinds of different diseases and illnesses that are correlated to malnutrition and exposure to these pesticides and chemicals. So there's, I think the first step is buying organic where you can, but from small holding local sustainable farmers, specifically the CSAs and the panier bio.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you. It's a lot of good options there for us. The second question, I've actually had a few people ask about this, but what is the panelists' opinions on high output urban vertical gardens, and what do they think its impact would be? Maybe Carolyn can answer this since you're talking about urban agriculture.
I think it's an excellent choice. I know one of my former students, she has just started in the last 2 years. The name of her company is Verite, and she produces organic strawberries, but they can't be certified organic because they are hydroponic, vertically in an underground garage that is not being used, and she's using LED lights, and so she has there's no pesticides, there's nothing being used, and they're excellent, they're high quality. So I think there's a huge potential there, especially in places that are underused, that we can convert to this without too much of a problem. And because it's underground, the heating costs are less, because the building's on top, so she's got that advantage. She's using LED lights, which are and also they're colored to the needs of the plant. So I think there's a huge potential for that. But the only thing I do want to emphasize, it's not going to solve all of our problems because we still need protein. And I mean, I'm not going to get into this, but I think that there's this huge controversy out there whether not eating meat will reduce greenhouse gases and etc. The thing that I feel is that many of our grassland ecosystems evolved with herbivores, and that is something that grassland systems need. They need herbivores. I'm not saying to overgraze. There's different things. But I think that meat consumption is a protein source. We are omnivores. We can reduce how much we eat. We can eat meat more like people eat in developing countries, where it's a flavor, not the main course. And I think that changes everything, because I do think that switching to tofu and a lot of soybean. A lot of our soybeans are coming from Brazil, and Brazil has a lot of deforestation to grow soybeans and corn. So that doesn't make it better. I would preferentially eat grass-fed beef over buying soybeans from Brazil. So I lost the train of my thought on that question. Vertical gardens, moving back from grasslands back to vertical gardens, I think they have a very, very important place in urban environments. I think they can be easily integrated into systems. They do require maintenance, but that's an excellent choice.
That's good to hear. So I think we only have time for one more question, so I'll address it to Cesar. Have you been seeing demand growing over time in your business? What do you think will drive this demand, and what's your main customer base?
Can you get the question again, please? Sorry, it's late here.
Have you been seeing demand growing over time at the HuddleCorp, and what do you think will drive this demand?
So yes, we saw the demand growing over time, and this is okay. Sorry. In fact, when this is about what I talk about in the meat-based protein demand. The market is growing, so we have a demand specifically for better feed for animals. You know, the stake in animal nutrition is how to increase the quality of the meat, and today this is how the market is driven. The consumers are asking for better meat-based protein, which is more sustainable and which is consuming less resources. So we are in this tendon. We are working in this. Because we developed some feed that have a better performance for the animals, and we are so thanks to our feed we consume less natural resources to produce the same amount of animal protein. So farmers are really sensitive to it because they're a bit proud also of the product that they are giving to the consumers, and so there is attraction, you know, on this new way to get feed for animals.
Great, thank you so much. So that will be the last question because we're running out of time. But I would like to give a big thank you to our amazing moderator and panelists for their work and great knowledge and insights. I'm sure I can speak for everyone in saying that this was extremely productive and insightful conversation. Finally, we'd like to thank everyone for coming, for listening, and providing awesome questions. Definitely learned a lot. I just want to also remind everyone that there's a registration for the company fair and networking, and it closes tonight. And also, fortunately for us, we still have a workshop that's happening at 4:15, held by Graham from P3 Permaculture, and it's going to be really great. So I hope to see you all there. And if not, have a great evening, everyone, and stay safe. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.